phone. So it changes. Okay, and we are live. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, let me make sure that we are live everywhere and that we are starting this party. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Let me make sure that we are live. Yes, we are live. Here we are. We are live. We are live. Hello. Good morning. So let's get this amazing party started. Hello. This is Soribel Martinez. I am a licensed clinical psychotherapist in the state of Connecticut. I am the CEO of SM Psychotherapy and Counseling Services, 2 times bestseller and also the bestseller of Unbreakable. And I am your host of I Am Unbreakable Live podcast. And we have an amazing woman who is also unbreakable. And we are going to have an amazing conversation with all of you. This is going to be a natural conversation where we're going to be sharing about grief and loss and what is it that we have done for ourselves to get through the adversity, overcome the adversity, honor our grief while we are also business owners, entrepreneurs, growing our businesses, building our queendom legacy. We are moms. Shawniel is a wife, and we have family, right? Also that we have to take care of. And also, what do we do to help our clients when they're struggling with grief and loss? And sometimes when grief becomes very complicated. So that's what we're gonna do today. Come in, say hello. We are live, and I'm very excited to be here with you. This is our second episode, and it's all about grief and loss. How do you overcome it, and how you become unbreakable? And let me present to you my amazing guest, friend, colleague, a woman that I met at a network event when we were just starting our businesses, and how we are just like growing and we continue to have that connection. So listen, if I mispronounce her name, you will forgive me. Her name is Shawniel Chmanlal.
Chmanlal, yes, you did
Yes,
it.
I did it.
Yes.
I did it. I was like, Chanel, can you please tell me how you pronounce your name? Because my English sometimes it's not that very good looking. But again, that doesn't even matter, right?
Right?
Because we all have our imperfections, we all have our struggle, and you already know which one is mine. I am Dominican. I was born in the Dominican Republic. My first language is Spanish, and sometimes English wants to get in the way of this queen building her queendom. We're not going to do that. We are not doing that. So, Chanel, present yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Soribel, for having me on the show. I am so proud of you and all that you're doing. 2 times best-selling author. And like you said, we were growing together, and to see both of us in this stage of our business is amazing. So I'm Shawniel Chmanlal. I am the CEO and founder of Healing Springs Wellness Center, which is located in Connecticut. We offer mental health therapy, nutrition, and energy healing services, holistic wellness services for your mind, body, and soul. I'm also a consultant and a coach to therapists who are looking to grow their business and really create an attractive team. We have a team of about 14, and we're growing. Like Soribel says, we're growing. Our queendom is growing. So thank you for having me today.
Of course. And the reason why I wanted my friend and colleague and business building and all the other things, right? The reality is that just because we are queens and we are building queendoms and we are in the space of helping other people overcome and become who they were meant to be in the world, that doesn't really mean that we are not exempted from dealing with grief, loss, adversity, problems, challenges. So, and I know that with all the respect, I love your mom, her energy, And we're going to be talking about her today. And we're also going to be talking about Giancarlo's, right? And we want to have this candid conversation. We're going to put our heart out here to share with you what we have dealt with in terms of loss and, grief, and allow you to take these powerful conversations and apply it into your life so you can also become unbreakable. So tell me a little bit about your mom.
Well, my mom was a diva,
Oh,
but
yes, she was.
but
She
she was
was.
someone who, like, I describe as my cheerleader. And when I started growing my business, when I committed to really growing Healing Springs into a group practice was in 2020. And my mom died August 2020, and it was suddenly. She went to the hospital and she never came back out. And I just remember collapsing on the floor and saying to my husband, how am I going to survive this? I lost my best friend, my cheerleader, my mom. And at that point, I didn't know how I was going to survive this. It was traumatic because when you experience sudden loss, it's like the world just crumbles beneath you, and there's no closure, right? There's no closure, and that was in the heat of the pandemic. So even being able to grieve traditionally, be there at the hospital with her, be with family, there was so many restrictions. So grief looked so different in that time. But my mom was someone who was like the definition of unconditional love and support. She would take the shirt off of her back, right? She left a legacy. There were so many people that really shared that they like the impact that they had, little or small or big. My sister went to get her car fixed, and the mechanic met my mom one time, and when he asked where's your mom, she told him she died, and he started crying. That's the level of impact, and she met him once, right? So imagine years. Um, so it was a huge loss for a lot of people, including myself and my siblings. And
Yeah.
I would say that it was a weird time where it was bittersweet. Like I was grieving, but I was also building this business, and it took off. October of 2020, hiring my first therapist, and then by March, I had 10.
Yes.
I don't know
So,
how
yeah.
that happened, but it happened.
Yes, because what I feel is, for example, when I was pregnant with Giancarlo's, I was like really happy, getting ready. I really wanted him. He was like a pregnancy that was like really different from my son's pregnancy, right? And I used to tell Giancarlo's all the time in the belly, like, wow, you're going to become a salsa dancer, because he was so active. John, and when I was pregnant with John, John was like quiet, like chill, like the same guy that he is today in the belly. So I used to, make fun and say like, "Wow, you're gonna become a salsa dancer." And the impression that he had left in my life, it was one of a traumatic experience. To this day, I can still smell the burning skin of having that C-section done and not being completely asleep, right? And being in that room, and again, it was the only person that was there, or the person that was there, it was my mom,
Hmm.
right? Because can no one love us and support us like our moms? Like they are the first one to cheer us on when we're not doing well, tell us that it's okay, that everything is going to be good. So I totally understand how that will impact you and create some sense of trauma in your life, losing such an important person. But at the same time, that loss and that grief prepares you to the next level.
Mhm.
What was that process like for you?
It's, I still try to wrap my head around it, but I think that that sudden loss helped me to realize that I no longer wanted to play it small. That
Mhm.
we have a limited time on earth, even though sometimes we, in our mind, we're like, we have time, but we don't.
We
So
really don't.
I want to leave a legacy, right? I'm a mom and I'm a wife. I'm a mom of a 3-year-old. And my commitment to my child is to be here as long as I can by taking care of myself, but also make sure that he doesn't struggle, right? So make sure that
Yes,
I'm setting him up. So
yes,
that sudden loss just motivated me to just do everything that I needed to do. Like it was just kind of like any limits that I put on myself was released.
yes.
And I sometimes think that my mom was that cycle breaker for me, but
Mhm.
and then I anchored into her love and how proud she was of me. Like she is the angel that's on my shoulder. And I think God and her divine intervention just helped me to have the Midas touch in my business. But I
Yes,
use that loss as motivation, right? And just the
yes.
realization that you have a limited time here, so you're going to make the best of it. You're not going to play it small no more.
Yes. And I remember when I lost Giancarlo's and I was in that state, crying, grieving him. I really missed him. I really wanted him in my life. I did everything, and here we go, the emotions. But the reality is that I did everything possible so he could be here with us, but he wasn't. It was sudden. I went into a doctor's appointment. Uh, and I left empty handed. I left the hospital
Mhm.
empty handed. And that was really traumatic for me. But one of the things that I learned in this process was that to ask the right questions.
Mhm.
And quite often, when we are in the middle of grief and change and transformation and struggling, sometimes the first thing that we want to say is, why us? Why me, right? Why me? Why my mom? There's plenty of people out there doing terrible things in the world that they're just there doing whatever they want, hurting other people, committing crimes, and they're healthy and they're well. But this woman that was such an amazing diva, and her energy and her presence online was so powerful, right? I never met her personally, but I met her through the social media. So, and one thing that I learned to do is not to ask myself, why me? Because why not me? I'm alive, right? And time is life. And while we are alive, we're going to experience all sorts of things. We're going to
Mhm.
experience all sorts of situations. So I ask myself this question: God, what is the purpose of this adversity? What was the questions that really got you into self-analysis, into analyzing yourself and helping you make better decisions and choices for yourself?
Well, I love that. I love the question that you asked, like, what is the lesson? And I know that when you think about resilience, right, you can kind of turn it and just say, like, why did this happen to me? And
Hmm.
sometimes you have to ask that question, but you can't get stuck there, right? You have to really understand, that as humans, we experience a wide range of emotions: happiness, sadness, adversity. So, what will you do with that? Like, what do you need? What supports do you need? I know I'm a pretty independent person, but at that time, I needed support, right? Sometimes I need people to tell me to slow down, right? That to slow down, I needed people to tell me that it was okay to take breaks. I mean, I
Hmm.
had a group of therapist friends that like really took over my caseload for a whole month. Like they reached out to everyone and just let them know like she needs a break, right?
Yes.
So really being able to do that. I went to therapy. I've done therapy before, when I was pregnant, but I went to therapy for grief specifically, and just that validation, someone validating like you were going through trauma. This is not just grief. It was the flashbacks, the vision, like being triggered by things on TV or things that people said.
Yes.
Really being able to look at those parts that a lot of people don't realize that grief can bring.
Yes.
So what does that look like, and what supports do I need? Because you're going to need to anchor into the
Yes.
support and the healing. It's so important.
Yes. I remember after I lost young Carlos and I left the hospital and I was no longer pregnant, I was so sad. 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 I was so for a long time, I couldn't look at women that were pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a trigger for me. I was happy for them, but I couldn't like look at them, like look at their belly, especially because he was dead in my belly for few days, couple days, because the doctor said that he probably passed away like Christmas, the 25th, and then
Mm-hmm.
I went to the doctor the 27th, right? So a couple days he was in my belly and he was no longer there, and I had a really hard time looking at other women that were pregnant, especially big bellies, and also John Anthony and I went to, my John Anthony is my oldest son. We went to grief counseling that summer, and we spent the whole summer doing some work, because the reality is that needing support is not a sign of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's a sign of resilience. What do you say to people? You know, us as therapists, we get people a lot that they don't want to come to therapy because they feel like therapy is for quote unquote crazy people, which that term is not even appropriate, right? But what do you say to those people that are still struggling to get the support that they need so they can really get to the other side of that process of grief?
Well, I would have to say that remember that grief is an ongoing thing, and that having support is going to help you with endurance, right? Like, because grief's gonna hit you on times when you're just like just sitting there and
Mm-hmm,
just calm, and then it's just gonna come at you, right? So if you want to endure this journey, right, because it is a journey of
mm-hmm,
grief, you need that support. I would say that grief also helped me to look at some of my unhealed parts, like even
yeah,
the dynamic, like the relationships I had with my mom or my siblings, my spouse, right? So having a therapist that specializes in grief and trauma is going
mm-hmm,
to help you to really uncover things that you probably never even seen, patterns that you probably were repeating, right?
yeah,
That if you sit down with someone that can help you to uncover that and heal from that, you're going to come out stronger on the other side, right?
mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing process, right? It's an ongoing process.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you know what, for me, something that I really teach and I practice myself is that when you are in that place where grief hits you like a slap in your face, right? And you are not expecting it. I
Mhm.
may wake up sad. I may wake up angry. I may wake up feeling a certain kind of way. I may wake up not feeling my optimal self. I choose to honor the grief,
Mhm.
because grief is like the ocean, right? Think about going to this beautiful ocean beach, and the ocean sometimes is just so calm. So that's the part of grief where you like in that place of acceptance and peace, right? But then there is other waves, right? That may be the anger, that may be the negotiation, right? That may be sadness or depression. That may be some other feelings that you are feeling. You have to honor them. Suppressing the feelings is just going to make it worse.
Yeah, it's gonna just make it like a pressure cooker, and it's gonna show up in different parts of your life. I mean, I know I probably wasn't the best wife, the best mom, the first year or two, with this loss. And I had to own that. I had to own that. And I had to remind people around me that I was grieving, because sometimes it feels like the world has just moved on, right?
Yeah.
And you have to remind yourself that it is okay when those emotions hit you, right? It's okay. I mean, today is Easter, and my mom, traditionally she would make fish, she would make all that,
Mhm.
yummy things that I'm not the best making fish. And those thoughts come, they'll start to come a couple of days before the holidays and milestones.
Yeah.
And before I was just angry, right? I was angry. And as I'm working on my healing, it was just like, how do I honor her today? And
Yeah.
so honoring her was making a dish that I knew how to make. I wasn't gonna try to make that fish, but making a dish, and being with my family, and
Yeah.
taking out her special plates that she passed on to me, right? So finding ways to honor her. So I'm
Yeah.
riding the wave of acceptance, but it drifts back. Like I love the ocean analogy. Like it drifts
Yes,
back
it just
sometimes, right?
yeah. The
But
ocean sometimes is very rough, right?
mhm.
The ocean is very rough, and that roughness is when you don't want to get out of your bed because you're so sad because that person that left. And I also have chosen to honor my son in different kind of ways, right? I have launch the JC Precious Mind Foundation. That's my way of honoring him, where we help children with special needs in the Dominican Republic, right? So for me, keeping that legacy, that vision, that purpose in front of me, it really helps me honor him in a positive way, right? So every time I think about the kids that are receiving therapy, right? OT, BT, psychological. They get to go to have a special education. They get to have that book of that weighted blanket that the parents can afford, and we can send it to them. That makes me happy. That makes me remember that my grief and my loss was not in vain, right? That we can choose to take something and embrace it and make the best out of it.
I love that, Sorabel. Like, what an amazing foundation and legacy, that he'll continue to live on through the children and the families. And I had said that too. I was like, my mom was someone who invoked so much confidence in us and loved feeding. Like, she was 16 in Jamaica feeding kids, and you think you're playing and going hanging out. She was out there feeding the neighborhood kids. So I plan to also do a foundation because I think you think about all the ways that you want the legacy to continue for your loved one, and how do you channel that. And some people, it could be as small as planting a garden, or like holding on to the holiday traditions, right? Keeping the family together. Whatever way you feel that energy will continue, right, is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also through this process of grief, how do we help those around us to also grieve, right? For example, John was only 5 years old. John was five, and I wanted to make sure that I taught him resiliency. I wanted to make sure that I taught him how to grieve his brother, that it was okay to cry. And I gave myself permission a lot of time to say, I am sad. Mommy's sad today. I miss Giancarlo. Sometimes we will cry together, right? And we will talk about it. And now when we talk about John Carlos, it's more like a smile, or like, oh, remember that time when he was just kicking and hitting and we thought that he was dancing salsa in the belly? And it becomes like, like a wonderful memory. So we get to honor that for us and those around us. And how, because I know your husband also had a relationship with your mom, how were you able to support his own grief process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we talked a lot about my mom, and just, times when he was like, I feel sad too, and just joining in that. I'm like, I know that must have been hard for you as well, even though, my grief could probably take up the whole room, but being able to make space for other people that, you
Mhm.
know, um, had encountered her, even my siblings. Like sometimes I would just call my sister, I would just have a knowing that she needed a call today, and I would just call and check in, no pressure. And we just share stories. Half of the stories were funny because my mom was like a comedian.
Yeah.
So really just sharing stories,
Yes.
but allowing people to talk about their feelings, happy, sad, indifferent. The person I would say that struggled the hardest was my brother with
Mm.
that, and it was kind of like a lot in the denial stage. So we allowed him to sit in that and just check in, and I would still share, this is how I feel. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're feeling like this, but this is how I feel. So giving permission, you
Yes.
know, giving permission to feel whatever you're feeling, because grief looks so different
For everyone.
on everyone. But I think also with my son, who was 9 months at the time, and my mom loved him. Like
Oh, I'm sure.
yeah, she spent he was a colicky baby, so she spent the first 2 months with me.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so with him, we have pictures of her on our wall, like coming up the stairs. So just remind him like that's grandma,
Yes.
she loved you. So like still infusing that she was in his life, even though it was just a small time, but
Yes.
it was a memorable time for him as well.
Well, but how impactful to him for him, it's a privilege for him to have those 2 months just him and grandma.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you know how spoiling grandmas can be. Like, you don't get that spoiling experience from your parents and your grandparents that will go all out into giving you the things, or like just making you feel like the triple duple special, because grandparents, that's what they do. They just want to spoil the
They
grandchildren.
want to spoil you. Sometimes I'm like, can I skip over being a parent and be a grandma because they have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be too easy. That would be too easy. Being a mom is also amazing. It's just like we had to keep like an alignment and a balance between discipline, parenting, loving, giving, taking. It's like it's a beautiful dance. But with grandparents, they don't need to worry about that because they already raised us and they already did that part of the work.
One of the other things that was so special that my mom, she had moved to Florida and for a couple months, and so I would send her a lot of videos, and she would send me a lot of voice notes talking to Sean, my son, and so I still have those. So I
Oh,
hear them with
oh,
him.
that's super special.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
he's going to be able to hear those when he gets to that age, and
Mhm.
he's so precious. I mean, he's so handsome. You're going to be
Thank
out
you.
of trouble, just so you know. So here is the thing. Let's now talk about some of the tangible things that we have done to really overcome this space as we continue to grieve, because it's a process. My first question is that do you find that grief gets easier as time passes by? What is your experience with that?
I think grief gets easier to navigate. I don't think it gets easier per se because you'll always have that sense of loss. But you can, those emotions, those waves may become a little bit shorter.
Mhm.
Um, you have more of awareness of like what are the things that you need when you're feeling sad or angry, right? Like, again, what do I need today? Maybe it's a break, maybe it's just
Mhm.
talking to someone. So that awareness and being able to navigate it becomes easier. But there will be milestones, there'll be birthdays, there'll be holidays where it can still feel heavy, right? And
Yeah.
being able to acknowledge that and plan for that. Sometimes you can plan, sometimes you just know that that wave is not going to last forever, and if you can tell yourself that, you can navigate that. And if it does feel like it's lasting forever, that might be a sign that you need to continue or go to therapy.
Yes. For me, I remember when I first lost Giancarlo's, when I left the hospital, they gave me a purple box with his death certificate, his footprint, handprint, a little hat that he was wearing when they brought him into the room, some pictures that they took of him, of me with my mom, and so on and so forth. And I remember that in the beginning, I used to just sit for hours looking at the pictures or looking at his death certificate or looking at those little things. That was the only thing that I have as a connection for me. But now, honestly, it has been years since I have opened a box. It has been a long time since I opened the box. And one of the things that helped me also grieve better in the way that I grieve, it was I had to remove this stuff from the house.
Mm.
I want to say get rid of, because we don't get rid of things like that. I had to remove all of the strollers, crib, bassinets. Oh my God. It was like my house was like a Konani. You know what a Konani is? Like a daycare, a home daycare.
Okay.
What a Konani is. It's like a home daycare, right? That's all Latinos call it. So for me, being able to honor my grief and allow myself to be in that place helped me. What has been the one thing that you did a lot in the beginning that you see yourself kind of like not needing to go to that place as often or frequently?
To be honest, I overworked myself. Like I drowned myself in work, and probably why the business grew so fast. Divine intervention. But I feel like there was a level of dissociation of like, I'm going to have a little bit of tunnel vision to be able to navigate this grief. And what I have realized, especially in the last year, is that I can be more present in my life and grow my business without having to, overwork myself or, get tunnel vision. So having more ease in my life has been important. And I would say, I mean, I say I graduated from therapy. So therapy was like so pivotal. I was going to therapy like at least once a week. So being
Yes,
able to like just have that support
yes,
and again anchor me because I was floating sometimes,
yes,
anchor
yes.
me, ground me right back
Yes.
here in this reality was helpful.
Yes, yes, and that is so true. I mean, when I did therapy, it was so empowering and also empowering for my son. And once John was done, he was like, "Mommy, I'm good. I no longer need therapy." And then
Mhm.
we stopped doing therapy together, group therapy together. But it's so important that we find the support that we need. Now, I have created what I call that I share in my book in my book Unbreakable, hello, hello, go get your copy. There is a chapter dedicated specifically to that process of grief. And when there was a time in my life when I had brain surgery that I created the bounce back from the dirty share process,
Mm.
which I use for myself and with my clients. That is tools and strategies, and using some CBT there to help change and transform your, the mindset, the perception, how we see and perceive the grief or the adversity. What kind of practices do you recommend besides going to therapy? Because we go to therapy, we get that support, but then we have to continue every day and practicing certain things to help us continue to grieve.
Yeah. So what I would say is like I am a very spiritual person. So um I did a lot of prayer. I mean, there was
Yes,
conversations that I've like prayed to God, prayed to, even prayed to my mom, like, keeping that connection. So praying was something that was huge for me.
yes,
Journaling, journaling, I have tons of journals, but journaling, expressing my feelings,
mhm,
expressing my dreams,
mhm,
journaling was just an outlet to get all those emotions
mhm.
out. That
Yes,
was so important. Mindfulness, like just again, asking myself, like, are you present today? Like, are you here in this moment? So those questions, a lot of inner child work.
yes,
On my desk right now, I have a picture of my mom and me as a 5-year old, and I realized that 5-year old needed a lot of healing and support. So, really talking to my inner child that was really grieving, right? So talking to my 5-year old self, asking what she needed for support. Did she feel safe, especially when those grief waves hit, right?
yeah,
And really just doing those things to take care of myself. And that was a lot of play, like playing with my 3-year old, which
yes,
was important, like really, and that helped with connecting and being present, playing, cuddling, really spending the time, anchoring into what I have right now in this moment versus
yes,
what I lost, helped me
yes,
to survive.
yes.
Mhm.
I personally, I am also a very spiritual person, and when I decided to write Unbreakable, and in Unbreakable, I share a lot of the stories of grief and loss, whether if it was through immigration, losing my parents coming to the United States and leaving us behind DR, then coming to the United States and then having that loss of leaving my country. Journaling, and the reason why I designed this journal, the Unbreakable Journal, is because I have been able to literally design my life through journaling. And one of the practice through the journaling is one, asking myself those questions, important questions, and also meditating and analyzing, where am I in this moment, what is going on with me in this moment, and honoring those feelings and those emotions. Because what I find with people is that people want to ignore the feelings and the emotions, and they're not going to disappear because we ignore them. They're going to get magnified. So in the journal, you are able to take those questions for self-analysis. I love doing the SWOT analysis for my personal life because it helps me understand what kind of chair am I sitting on, right? Is it the chair of grief, the chair of loss, the chair of am I sad, am I depressed, am I anxious, am I procrastinating, am I being lazy? What is that chair, right? What is that chair? That's what is the representation of the dirty chair, is what negative emotion are you dealing with? So bouncing back from the dirty chair is a process of really understanding where you're sitting and how you got there in the first place. Because awareness, like you were saying just a little bit ago, is everything. We need to be aware. What kind of things do you do to become aware of where you are at in your process?
Well, I mean, I love the SWOT analysis for your personal life, but being aware is, the questions I ask myself is like, again, how, like, waking up in the morning and just saying, how are you feeling today, right? Just checking in with yourself. The
Yes.
other one is, if there's an emotion that is popping up, coming from a place of curiosity. Where is
Mhm.
that coming from? You
Yes.
know, you know, when did I start feeling that? Just like being an investigator to your feelings and being curious and compassionate, not like, oh my gosh, I'm angry, I'm
Judging
getting
yourself.
sad. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, oh wow, this is coming up.
Yeah.
What does that mean, right, for me? And what do I need? The question of, like, we don't ask ourselves that much. I mean, I know for me, caregiver at heart, and a lot of my clients, we take care of so many people, but when it comes to ourselves, we tend to neglect that. So that empowering question of what do I need shifts
Mhm.
it back on, and letting you know that you are important, that it's
Yeah.
okay to ask what you need. And some of the things you might be able to do for yourself, right? That could be, I need an extra 5 minutes of sleep. I need to
Oh,
drink water. I need a hug, right? I need to finish this project, right? Whatever that looks like that you need, is so empowering to ask yourself. And
yes.
then, what do I want my day to look like, right? What do I want my day, like that intention that you're setting for yourself,
Yes.
right? And if it's a day that you're just like, I just want to be a couch potato today, I'm very sad, give yourself permission, right?
Yeah.
We try to show up all the time, and sometimes we just need to go with the ebbs and flows of grief. And if you're an entrepreneur, ebbs and flow of the highs and lows of your business, right? Like, just giving yourself permission and compassion is so
Yeah.
important. So those are the things that I tend to go
Yes.
through. Mhm.
So for when you're talking about the awareness, and then being that gentle observer, I call it the gentle observer of your emotions and your thought processes, without the judgment, without beating yourself up. Are you feeling again? Oh my God, are you serious? Like, why are you feeling like that again? Like, that is ridiculous. But rather, like, just looking at it, observing it, investigating, like you said, asking yourself that question. How are you feeling today? Because there are times that I wake up and I'm in a bad mood. And I'm like, but I went to bed feeling magnificent. Like, why am I feeling this way? And then when I become the gentle observer and that investigator of looking at what is going on, oh, today's the 27th when Giancarlo passed, or it's 2 days before his anniversary, or whatever. And being able to be the gentle observers of your thought and your feelings is going to give you an opportunity for you to decide, Are you going to stay seated in that dirty chair of grief and loss? Or are you going to honor that grief, understand where you at, look at it, observe it, be the gentle observer of it. But then at some point, we have to decide to bounce back from that chair.
Mhm.
So what does a bouncing back from that dirty chair looks like for you?
Bouncing back for me was okay, I have a commitment. I have a commitment to myself. I have a commitment to my son. I have a commitment to my family to continue to do the work, right? To my goal and my purpose is to leave impact on my clients, on my family. And so if I were to stay in that dirty chair and stay stagnant, then life is just going to pass me by. And I can't, right? Because I have to leave something for my son. I have to leave a legacy, right? And the thing is, like, my mom would want me to, right? My
Yeah.
mom made so many sacrifices in her life, right? She has went through her fair share of adversity and she bounced back each time. So if she could do it, I knew I could do it, right? And the thing is that I had someone say, like, after your mom died, I just saw a fire light in you and your business just like took off and just transformed. And it was really that, like, I'm anchoring into my mom's love. I'm anchoring in how proud she is. And I'm anchoring that I need to leave a legacy for my son. And I can't do that while laying down. I'll take my breaks, right? Right. That endurance.
Of
But I
course.
can't. I have to keep on going, right? I have to keep on showing up. And then to take it a step further, I knew, reflecting back in her life, right, things that I observed in her life and what we went through, and realizing that no longer do I want to be in scarcity. No longer do I want to struggle.
Yes.
Like I said, my mom was that cycle breaker of, like, she was trying. So I took that baton and I'm going to complete that. And the generations after me will have that. So I am breaking cycles and I cannot sit still. I cannot sit still and lay down because I have a purpose, a mission.
Yes. And that is so true because, bouncing back from the dirty chair, as I call it, will require us to have a level of commitment and a level of decision making. For me, I still had John Anthony. I still had a son that I needed to raise, that I needed to live for, that I needed to take care of, that I needed to teach him how to grieve and how to deal with loss in his life. And additionally, I decided that I was going to build my kingdom legacy because that's why I was created for. I was created to leave a legacy that is meaningful, that it makes sense, a legacy that's worth him and his children passing on to the next generations. And we don't do that by sitting down and staying down. We can get knocked down. I've been knocked down a few times in my life, and who knows what life has to bring, right? But I refuse to just stay down. And that's
Exactly.
like, okay, so I'm grieving. Oh, let me tell you what happened when I was writing that chapter of the book. When I was writing the chapter of the book about grief and loss of Giancarlo, that chapter I write in the morning. That chapter in particular put me down,
Mm.
grief, literally crying. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was emotionally drained. I was grieving. Well, what I did was I honor my grief. I canceled the rest of my clients, and I needed to rest. I went to bed and I rested the next day. My body needed rest, and I listened to my body and I gave my body what my body needed because I needed to recuperate that energy. Because when I was writing that book, I was put right back into the space of grieving and the memories of, like, the doctor saying he's no longer here. I don't know what happened. He was healthy. I don't know what happened. Even the doctor, his tears came down because he couldn't believe it. There was no reason. He couldn't explain it to me, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So when you are grieving, you have to have a self-care practice and a plan that can help you. And in the book, not I just only talk about grief and loss and the things that you can do. We also give you a template that you can utilize to create your own self-care practice plan, because we, especially women, right? Do you agree with me that sometimes women, we do not take care of ourselves?
Absolutely. It's yeah, that's why it's just so important to like turn that question inward because, you know, it's hard.
Yeah,
I
because
love that. I love that you have that in there and it just holds people accountable, holds us accountable to really do the work because it is work healing. It is work.
it is not a work. And self-care is not about just us looking pretty and having being dressed up and doing our hair and our nails. When I talk about a self-care plan, I'm talking about a holistic approach to building an unbreakable life and business. And the reason why that part of business is important is because if you are not taking care of yourself and you are not doing the self-care work, that's going to show up in your business, and how your business grow or doesn't grow, how your business is impacted positively or negatively, have everything to do in how you are doing and how you're developing. Can you agree with that?
100%, 100% agree. And I think when you are able to sit down and see how my life, how my decisions, how my loss is impacting my business, then, it really opens you up. And I think that part of like ever learning and being intentional, right? Like I love trying out different healing modalities, so I always test them out for my clients. So shout out to my clients because firsthand I can tell you how they are. But even like I did like an ancestral healing the other day and it really brought some insight to again my life and also the limits I may put on my business because of what I was going through, what I've been through. And so that healing now is going to impact in a positive way both my life, how I treat myself, and how I treat my business and the relationships in my business. So
Yes.
you are ever evolving, ever growing. Life is going to happen, right? That is one thing we're guaranteed is that you're going to have joyous moments and you're going to have moments of adversity, but what do we have the tools, right? Do we have the tools and support to navigate those calm moments and those moments that are peaked, right?
And
So,
not being afraid to ask for that help,
mm-hmm. It's
like
so
not being afraid to say, I am feeling this way today. Who can be my support system? Who can I call? Who is the person that's going to give me that sense of assurance or that sense of support that I need to lift me up when things are not going so well?
mm-hmm.
Who are your supports right now?
Well, I have a therapist friend who also has a group practice. So whenever things get hard in the business or even joyous moments, I check in with her. My husband is a major support and has been there through all of it, right? The joyous moments and the hardest moments of my life. I have really good best friends. So I have a good support. And then I have coaches and consultants, again, to hold me accountable when I want to give up on the business part, it gets too hard, So having like the business and personal supports are amazing, and will help to push you past your limits, right? Past things that you can't see. And, my therapist who says it's a revolving door. So when I'm ready to come back, because there might be
Oh, yeah.
moments, she's there waiting for me, but also cheerleading me on from all the growth that I've done in the
And
past
it's the
couple of
same for me. Yeah,
years.
I always say I have a therapist in the back pocket. My
Yes.
therapist, when it's needed. I don't need it all the time, but when I do need it, I do call and make that appointment. I have business coaches, support, consultant, team members, right? That become support, like my personal assistant.
Mm-hmm.
from the Dominican Republic tomorrow, to be here for my book launch party that's happening April 27th at the Hartford Club. You know, and she's going to be here for May again, and she's going to be here for all the greatness and all the goodness of the growth of this movement that is called Unbreakable. Because for me, Unbreakable, it is a purpose, it is a vision, it is a movement, and all the proceeds that come through any work that I do for through Unbreakable, the course, the journal, the everything, it goes directly to JC Precious Mind Foundation.
Wow.
Because I refuse to now help these children thrive, right? To have the supports that they need so they can become who they want to become. And also those single moms, those parents who are struggling with paying the rent or buying the food because they have the children have a lot of sensory issues, right? And I just send a specific money just for that particular thing so they can have the food that they love eating, because we want them to feel supported. We want them to feel loved. And the website is coming on soon. We're working on it. So finding that purpose, finding that thing that pushes you, right? For me, it was it's my son, my business, my vision, Unbreakable, making sure that this word is getting everywhere. And this is why I created the I Am Unbreakable podcast, because I want women to understand that there is a possibility for them to become unbreakable in life and business. So, what can you say to those women who are in that place of grief and loss, and they're building their business or they're in transitioning to open their business? What would you say to them has been the biggest thing that has helped you hold it together so you can continue moving forward with your vision?
What I would say to them is, I appreciate you for showing up despite having been through so much, right? And I want you to say that to yourself. Thank you for showing up even on days when it was hard to. I
Yeah.
want you to know that you are worthy and destined for greatness. It
Yeah.
is yours, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we do have to go through, some hard things, but then those things become our testimony, our
Yes.
information for us, not only us, for people around us. I've had so many people, as I shared my story, come up and say, I needed that. I needed to hear that. So
Yes.
imagine who you'll be impacting, right?
Yes.
So don't give up. I know it's hard. And one thing I could say about my mom is that she went through a lot. She went through a lot. And to see that despite her adversity, despite people not treating her well, despite her loss, that
Yeah.
she continued to be a light and shine for
Yes.
others. And I
Yes.
want you to know that you are a light and
Mm-hmm.
you're shining for others. You may not know it. So don't give up
Mm-hmm.
because you're worthy.
That is such an amazing advice. I remember when I asked God, show me the purpose of this adversity in my life, and that came to be. I discovered the answer. I'm sorry. I discovered the answer, or it became apparent to me. There was one time that I was meeting with someone that I knew, and this person has suffered sexual abuse in her life. And there was one day out of nowhere that I sent her a text message. I don't know. I just like was inspired to test her, and send a text message. Well, she responded to that message and she said, "Sorry, Belle, your message just interrupted me from committing suicide."
Mm.
I was about, and when my phone gave me the notification, it startled me and it stopped me from going forward to
Mm.
do to making this happen. And then through that conversation, we scheduled a meeting. We met at a cafe, and as I'm sitting there with her, I'm talking to her and using empowerment strategies and tools to help her get through this adversity in her life. She has been molested by her father, and her family didn't believe her. Nobody believed her. She needed somebody to tell her that she was believed. And when we met, we having this conversation, something came over me. Like it was like surreal. Something came over me and told me like, this is the reason for your adversity. Because only going through your own pain and suffering, you will understand how to help others. You will be able to empower others to be the person that they need to be. And she's in a different place right now. She's in a different situation, in a different place. And yeah, I'm not saying that, we deserve it. Nobody deserves loss, but things happen to everybody. Children die every day, even at 40 weeks of gestation, right? So it became apparent to me that now I could use the story to empower other women to become great, and that you have everything it takes, that you are a queen and you can build your queendom through becoming unbreakable in your life and your business, through sharing your story, your gifts, your talents, giving yourself permission to be genuine and be who you are. You don't need to ask permission to anyone to be the woman that you were meant to be. You were designed and created by a king, and kings only produces queens. And you are a queen. And I want you to take some of these tools and a strategy and go into the world and create your queendom legacy, a legacy that's worth passing on to other people. And if you need people like me and us, Shawniel, how can people contact you if they need some of the work that you did need do in Connecticut?
Sure. So my business is called Healing Springs Wellness Center. So you can go on our website, healingspringswellness.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, my first and last name, so at Shawniel Chmanlal or at Healing Springs Wellness. Those are the best ways to contact us. Like I said, I have a team of 14, and we are ready and willing to help support you on your journey, whether it's in life, business, or even just having healthy, fulfilling relationships. We're here to support.
Yes, yes. So you can follow her, find her. We're going to have the information on the description boxes around here. Also, remember, I am Soribel Martinez. I am your host. And this is not going to be the first time that Shawniel is going to be here because, as you can see, she is a successful business owner. And as we continue to spread the creating unbreakable business and lives, she will come back so we can talk about just business. But we wanted to come, especially on a special day like today, that I know that people are feeling like a certain kind of way about people not being around. You needed these words of wisdom and words of encouragement because you deserve it. But here is the thing: we know that you deserve it. Period. We know that you deserve it. The most important part here is that you decide. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can deserve all the things, but if you not don't decide to go after it, it's going to be really difficult. So I am a host, Soribel Martinez, licensed clinical psychotherapist in the state of Connecticut, CEO of SM Psychotherapy and Counseling Services. I can't wait to see you next week. Please tune in. Come, get empowered, get the information, get the tools, get everything that you need so you can become unbreakable in life and business. I will see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.